North Christian Church. I'm Joy Lawler, the elder for the day. Today we welcome Chad Rosenberg, the Associate Minister at First Christian Church in Jeffersonville, Indiana. He's our guest speaker. And Jeffersonville happens to be my hometown, so I went to high school, same high school as these youth with us today. We're glad to have all of you in worship today, and welcome to everyone else as well. There are two events coming up this Saturday. Future Hills Choral Festival will be held here on Saturday and will feature several children's choirs as well as our own Columbus, Indiana Children's Choir. There's also on Saturday a fundraiser for a Granny Connection. There will be music by local artists and storytelling from Arthur Philip Gully. The event will be held at IUPC. You can find more details in the e-news. Please remember to bring cans and green beans to our church for our collection. It's for Love Chapel. We set a goal this year for 500 cans. Sounds like a lot, but if everybody brings a case, we should reach our goal. Next Sunday is All Saints Sunday. We will be remembering people who have passed away in the last year. If you have someone you would like to remember during the service, please submit the information to Pastor Tanya. And now let us go to God in worship. Hear our thoughts, O Lord, and give them order, so we can hear your voice. We have gathered here to worship you and to join with each other in common fellowship. God, what we do here, so that what we do may be pleasing in your sight. Amen. Please stand and sing hymn number 454. Come celebrate the call of God. Hymn number 454.
Elena, who's one of my youth, go ahead and read the scripture for today.
Before the
festival of Passover, Jesus knew that his time had come to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them fully. Jesus and his disciples were sharing the evening meal. The devil had already provoked Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew the Father had given everything into his hands and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the table and took off his robes. Picking up a linen towel, he tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a wash basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he was wearing. When Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You don't understand what I'm doing now, but you will understand later." "No," Peter said, "you will never wash my feet." Jesus replied, Unless I wash you, you won't have a place with me." Simon Peter said, "Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head." Jesus responded, "Those who have bathed need only to have their feet washed, because you are completely clean. You disciples are clean, but not every one of you." He knew who would betray him. That's why he said, "Not every one of you is clean." After he washed the disciples' feet, he put on his robes and returned to his place at the table. He said to them, "Do you know what I've done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you speak correctly, because I am. If I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you must too wash each other's feet. I have given you an example. Just as I have done, you also must do. I assure you, servants aren't greater than their master, nor are those who are sent greater than the one who sent them. Since you know these things, you will be happy if you do them. I'm not speaking about all of you. I know those whom I've chosen. But this is to fulfill the scripture, the one who eats my bread has turned against me. I'm telling you this now before it happens, so when it does happen, you will believe that I am. I assure you that whoever receives someone I send receives me, and whoever receives me receives the one who sent me."
Thank you, Elena. So I'm excited to be here today. I've been to this church before. I've had to do some education up here, had a meeting or two up here, and I've always thought it was really neat. I've walked this sanctuary many times. I love visiting other churches. I'm not a high church guy. I grew up Presbyterian, went to church here and there. My mom made me go, but she never went to church. As weird as that sounds, she was a Priester person. My family didn't go with me either, but my mom made me go, and so I didn't grow up this great big church background. But what I really enjoy is visiting churches and learning about churches and seeing the different ways people worship, and that means a lot to me. That actually helps me a lot in my faith. So being here today is great. And if you don't know, Tanya leads an associate minister group, and I'm actually a youth minister. But they wanted me to be there because, though I'm a youth minister, I have associate responsibilities at my church. So she's a fantastic leader. So I've heard about you all, heard about your church. She's a fantastic leader for all of us in the region who are associates, leading us and guiding us and giving us some of her wisdom. So I know you all are pretty lucky to have her as a minister. So this passage today means a lot to myself and our youth group, though they may not necessarily realize it. But every year we do a mission trip. We got to do one this past summer. We didn't get to do one in 2020, obvious reasons, pandemic going on. But one of the things that we do on our mission trip is we always wash each other's feet. We don't do baptism during this trip. I'm not a believer in that. I think a lot of it's the emotional manipulation of children, and I don't want to do that and just check my boxes and look how many kids we got baptized. But we want to do something special that brings us together. And because I want to develop a servant spirit, a servant heart, a servant mind for these kids. We want to do mission work because it allows them to see areas in our country that need help, situations people are in, and maybe hoping plant some seeds so later on in life that they can figure out ways to use their gifts and use the talents and abilities and the privilege that we have. I realize the privilege that I have as a white straight man. There's a privilege that I have that I can bring them to the table and advocate and be an ally for certain people. So we want our kids to develop that, and it's really beautiful to have kids gathered around each other. We set somebody in the middle, we lay hands on them, we pray over them. But I don't do the praying. The kids actually pray for each other. It's kind of neat seeing brothers who fight, or sisters who fight, or best friends who fight, or whatever, crying, praying for each other, and developing that. So this idea of foot washing is really cool. I'm going to bring Artie up real quick. Actually, I'll put that here. I can mine. But this last year, I think we took, 29 of us, 28 of us on a mission trip. Artie was her first trip. So when it comes to foot washing, what did you get from that experience? What did that experience mean to you in that moment?
I felt really relieved after it. Like, it was like a nice experience with my friends, and like it was good for the first time.
Yeah. Were you were nervous, but how was washing dirty feet? How was that intimidating? Was that a little gross for you?
It was gross because it was feet, but I understood the meaning of it, so it wasn't like bad.
Yeah. Thank you for coming down and answering those for me real quick. And I wanted to ask a question about washing the gross feet, because try to imagine how gross the feet were in Jesus' day. Right? They left foot washing to the lowest person in the household. Right? So this idea of the Messiah washing somebody's feet would have been pretty radical, would have been pretty extreme, would have been kind of nonsense. But Jesus proves in that moment to set all that aside, let me come to serve. Right? Jesus says, I have come to serve, not to be served. And for our kids, for our youth, they are in that moment, they are to serve the area we're in. And one of the things we talked about, you are to do whatever somebody asks you. Right? We're there to serve whatever ways that we're asked. It's not about us, it's about them. Right? We're going to wash each other's feet and pray, and they take it on head on. I find kids are very inspirational in a lot of those ways. And I do believe that service is one of the ways that we put our Christian love into action. It's one of the ways that we can see our Christian love. And what we have to realize is we all have something to give. And I know that you all as a church, you all have a servant's heart. It's been part of your DNA. It's a history. I watched Tanya's sermon last week, and she lifted up the ways in which you all have served your community over the years. I have also been aware through the meeting that I get to have with Tanya once a month of the different ways that you serve. We like to talk about the ways that we serve, the things our churches are doing. So I'm well aware of many of the positive and wonderful things that your church does. I can also tell you probably the most important thing in today's world that you all are doing is you're an open and affirming church. To my youth group, that is everything. That is everything. My church is not open and affirming. No, they are very welcoming of people, all people, but we need a state government. You got a state. And I have kids that are out in my youth group, and they need a safe place to worship, to be themselves, to live into who God made them and created them. And I can tell you right now, in a state that doesn't fully welcome people, in churches that if they do, that you are in the minority, I can't tell you how important that is for our young people. So I applaud you all for that work, because I know that was probably hard work to get to that point, tough, and at times I'm sure it brings criticism, as it does me being a progressive minister, but it's totally worth it. And that's showing the love of God. That's welcoming all people radically as Jesus did. As much as I want to sit here and just praise you and praise anybody that would hear this sermon today, it's not exactly what I'm here to do. I came here to challenge you a little bit. So many churches that hears this, I think this sermon can apply to my church, can apply to any church. And I know you all are in a sermon series, and I looked over the whole series that Reverend Tommy sent me, and really cool. Like, I love the stuff that's in this series. And this week, it's about empowering servant leadership. Now, we're not going to have time for reflection on questions today, so I'm trying to keep my sermon 20 to 25 minutes for you all. But I'm going to give you some questions at the end to hand out as you guys leave. And one of the questions I want you to consider is, are you being empowered to serve? Why or why not? And sometimes culture doesn't give us the opportunity to be empowered. And what I mean by that is, we have issues in our church cultures that make it hard for us to serve at times. So I want to start with that. I want to talk about 3 issues that we have in our churches, and maybe these apply to you. Maybe they don't. I bet you, though, one does, if not all three, to some degree. The first problem that we have in our churches and in our church culture when it comes to serving in church is we have the 20-80 problem. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Now, it could be 10 to 90, it could be 5 to 95, and whatever it is, but for the most part, we have issues where a few do it all. And this has become an accepted part of church culture. Literally, I was at a church meeting at my church recently, and we talked about this. And we just kind of brush it off. We accept it as normal, though it's unhealthy. Why do we accept that? It doesn't make sense to me. This is where I'm kind of glad I'm lower at church, because I don't accept it. And I challenge all that. That's one. The second one is a few people lead everything, and sometimes it's the minister that leads everything. Now, there could be a couple reasons why this happens. Maybe there's a few people, a family or whatever, that's the dominating voice in a church. I hear that a lot from people that I talk to in churches. You could also have the 3M. This is what I call the micromanaging minister. You have a micromanaging minister, which I don't believe Tommy is probably one of those. But if you have one of those, and the church hears this, that can be a problem. I know churches that do. And I know churches that also place the burden on the minister to do everything. It's the famous, hey, I have an idea for a ministry, but I can't do it, so you need to go do it. But if it's your idea, can you not do it or help me? And I've had this happen. People get frustrated when we don't step up as ministers. The third major issue that we have is that young people are not present in our church. And this affects older people that come to church as well. And what we kind of get wrong is we feel like we either have to play to the older crowd or the younger crowd. And what you really have to do is find a way to intermix both. You have to bridge that gap. It's a tough gap to bridge. It's hard. But we see and we know by statistics and surveys and information that young people are not coming to church. To give you a little idea of my experience with that, I was asked to start youth ministry in 2011. At that time, I was not in ministry. I had no plans to be in ministry. I was looking for something to do in church. My wife, every week in church, sings, all that. I'd go about every week. But I was looking for something. I had just come off my second cancer battle, and I was looking for a way to give back. And I tried 2 different things in church. And I was run out by those dominating voices that I was just talking about. People that, actually I was given a task, and this one gentleman took the task for me and did it himself. I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to do that ministry. So I had experience with this. But our youth minister left, been gone for a little while, and our youth ministry was nothing. So my associate minister at the time, who's now my senior minister, said, hey, you want to just teach Sunday school in the morning? Because the parents need something to do for their kids while they're in Bible study. I was like, yeah, sure. She's like, if you get 6 kids, you can keep doing it. I'm like, well, whatever. I like kids, so I'm sure I'll give it a shot, see what happens. That was the agreement, to Sunday school. 6 weeks later, we have 6 kids. That was in March of 2011. By June, we took over 20 kids on a mission trip. They came back from the mission trip. I was like, I think we got something here. I think I'm feeling something. I think this is it for me. By September 2012, I was part-time because our youth ministry had grown to over 30 people. I went full-time in 2016, entered seminary because we had over 50 kids. Currently, we still have somewhere between 30 and 40. I kind of quit keeping track because the ministry is healthy, and I don't really worry so much about numbers anymore. But about 80% of our kids come to our church without parents. I have reversed that trend. The girls that you see over here come every Sunday. Their parents are not involved in our church. I've had a youth group on Sunday nights, 15 to 20 kids, and I had 2 kids, my son included, who's right there, were the only kids that had parents that attended our church. So I do know something about attracting kids to faith and to Jesus. And what I've learned, it ain't about this, things about the church and the minister that we can do to bring that good news through the way that we serve each other. So let me offer a little feedback on some of these issues for us to consider. When we have something that's minister-led instead of congregational-led, your people are not excited. I could only grow our youth ministry so far. What grew the youth ministry is I had kids that were excited about what we were doing. I would sit with them like, hey, tell me what you all want to do. What do you want to learn? What do you want to study? What events do you want to do? What can we do here? And I accepted that things were a marathon and not a sprint. I do believe a lot of times we get wrong in church, that we have to hurry up and get people baptized and believing, and we don't give adequate time for kids to develop their faith. Even older people that maybe are new. I did not get baptized until I was in my 30s. Faith is a marathon. And if you have something that's led by a senior minister, you're going to run the senior minister to the ground. I recently, about this last year, looked at a profile for a church that was hiring a senior minister. And this is what they were looking for in a senior minister. They wanted somebody who was approachable. That's great. This is verbatim. Somebody who could build a children and youth ministry. Okay. Somebody who had a vision for the future while valuing our heritage. That's fair. Somebody who was great with creative worship planning. Alrighty. Somebody who was excellent and had strong pastoral care skills. A musician. An administrative leader with strength in small team management and a leader in new member growth. Do you want to dance? I mean, holy cow. That's like, if that minister exists, which they don't, if that minister exists, I tell you what, they are not looking for a job. I mean, you want them to do like everything. Like, I wanted to apply just to sit in the interview room and be like, yeah, I will not take your job because your expectations are unrealistic. And in 3 years, whoever they hired, if they did hire somebody, I'm keeping track, and I pray for that person, I pray for that church, that there's a heart change in there, that person's going to last 3 years. That's impossible. It's impossible for a minister to fulfill. We don't have that skill set. I'm in seminary right now. They don't teach us hardly much at all about administration. Creative worship planning, but what I learned about creative, like I can worship plan based on what my school tells me, but creative worship planning, I've learned that from my senior minister, who's really creative. I can't play or sing. Forget about that. So I asked some other ministers in the state. I put all those skills on there. I said, rate yourself. What are you really good at? What are you average at? What do you work on? Most of them would say they were really good at 2 or 3 things. They were average at some others. And not so good at other ones. That's pretty fair. That was what everybody put down. That's fair. And so why is this important to know? It's important to know because if that's the expectation, it can't be met. That's impossible. So what we have to do is accept that senior ministers need help. They need help. To run a church, fulfill all the obligations of ministries in the church, they need help. We were blessed over these last couple of years. When I say blessed, as a light term, I hate overusing that. But our board chair is also the CEO of Park Memorial Hospital in Jeffersonville. You talk about picking the right board chair for a global pandemic. Whew! And God love him. We even modified our bylaws to give him another year to serve, to help us through this time. And God love him for, he's one that offered it, to bring his expertise and knowledge to us. Because, you know, they don't teach you in seminary how to do church during a pandemic. We don't know. We're trying to figure it out, trying to do the best we can, but he can give us some advice. That's a skill set. It's a skill set of administration that he had and that he was willing to offer us. I do believe ministers should focus on the things that they are really good at. So this is a challenge for churches. What's a unique thing that ministers need to do? I would say preaching, right? Ministers expect to preach on Sundays. Let them focus on that. And there isn't much difference. Bigger church ministers, even my boss, may take a little issue with this. She probably won't, because I think she gets it. But there isn't much difference between what a minister does in a small church to a big church. Sermon prep takes the same amount of time. Pastoral care, you can only visit so many people. So if there's more people in the hospital, you'll just send an elder. Building a ministry. Now, a bigger church, you may have more meetings to go to, and that may be where the big difference comes. Even administrative, we're a multi-staff church. There's multiple staff that are paid in our church, so my senior minister has spent time with that. But for the most part, what a small church asks is not that much different than what a big church minister does. But those are the things that they uniquely can do. So I would say let the ministers focus on that, to be as good as they can in those areas that you hired them for. And then it comes down to what unique skills and talents does the church have? What do you have? What are your skills, talents, passions? What are the things that get you excited? What's the thing maybe you've never tried before? Because we have ideas, we have thoughts. You all have skills and talents. And sometimes we just haven't taken that leap of faith. The first step is always the biggest step. It's always the hardest step. I recently did a funeral for a man who spent 50 years serving in community theater building sets, never acted a day in his life. 50 years serving, just to make sure the show goes on for this little theater. How beautiful. I was inspired by that. I still never going to keep that. I will never forget that. These little ladies behind the scenes. So that's the feedback on that. It's to help the ministers out. Let them focus on unique areas. The second issue we have is the death statement. The death statement of, we have always done it that way. That is the death statement. We've been doing this way since 1983. I will tell you that if you don't update your ministries every 10 years, you're behind. I had seniors one year in my youth group that were Facebook era, pre-social media era. Kids, you guys are even hardly on Facebook anymore. Not really, no. Snapchat, TikTok, those types of things. But I had 6th graders that grew up in the social media area. So in 7 years, I had 2 cultures. And I had to figure out a way to bridge that gap and communicate to them. Our ministries constantly need to be updated with what we do and how we express God's love in our community so the culture understands the good news. If we do not speak in the current culture, they won't hear it. They won't hear it. So we have to sit and revisit. Keep the core value. If feeding people, my church, feeding people is a core thing. Alright, so how do we do it well? That's all we have to do. The way we do ministry, that can change. We just got to feed them. How we do it, we're going to change that. We're going to adapt that in time. And we have. It's been a struggle, but we have. I'm really proud of my church for doing that. And the third thing is there's lack of opportunities for young people to serve. Why? Because those dominant voices. Our young people are smart, educated, and knowledgeable in today's world. Smarter than I ever was. I have to be very careful with what I say and do because the kids know just as much as I do, if not more. They will challenge me, and I love it. Create opportunities for young people to serve. You all have a great foundation here already for that to happen. So to come down to a closing, we'll leave a couple things. We got to be honest about where we're at currently. We're in a pandemic state. We're pooped. We're tired. I'm tired. You tired? I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from making decisions. Maybe right now is not the time to do. It's the time to rest, think, vision, and pray. And I want you all to just reflect on a few of your statements. I hopped on your website as I was preparing my sermon. I got on your About Us page. And it says you guys are cultivating community from our doorstep to the ends of the earth. I love that. It's beautiful. The question I'll leave you with today on the paper I'll give you is, how are you as a church cultivating community? How are you personally participating in the cultivating of community? And I will tell you, you don't always have to do something to cultivate community. Not doing something is still doing something. What I mean by this is I provide a space of rest and fellowship for my youth. Because sometimes that's all they need. Just to share, laugh, whatever. Sometimes that's all you have to do is just sit down at a table and share a meal. Your beliefs from your website says it is our strong belief that God made each of us in God's own image, male to female, gay to straight, rich to poor, young to old, each of us, everyone beloved in God's eyes. With all our differences in age, ability, and physical condition, and race, culture, background, and economic status, and sexual orientation, gender identity, and family structure, God receives each one with loving kindness and joy. That's powerful. I'm going to tell you, that resonates with young people and all people today. I think I read a stat where there's somewhere around about 15% of the people today are out. Where in the 60s it was 1 to 2%. It's gotten safer, still a long ways to go. I know there's a lot of people in this community that don't have a place to worship. Not just young people, but older people. And forget about worship, forget about trying to bring people into the church and get tithes and membership, forget about all that. Just to let people know that they're loved by a Christian is huge. Living out that belief. Don't underscore that. Your practice is your official policy that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning persons are welcome to participate fully in all aspects of ministry. The church includes statements of support of LGBTQ plus persons. There's policies, including this building use policy, so that persons who are using the church building will be aware of the church's beliefs on these matters. Again, just to know that you're welcome. This building's cool. This building's cool. I don't know all the ways that you guys use this building. I was looking at the guest list earlier. But this is a draw. This is neat. Just for people to be able to come to a place of worship, to participate, whether it's a meeting or a gathering or a meal, huge. And in your community, North Christian Church is active in supporting LGBTQ plus persons throughout our community. You participate in God's mission to heal the brokenness of creation, to bring justice and peace to the whole human family. This includes promoting human rights, opposing oppression wherever it may be found in the world. We pledge to work for the day when society will welcome all in the way that Christ welcomes us. That idea of justice, social justice, resonates with young people today. Hey, listen, you all have it. You all have it. You do. You have a good foundation. You have a belief system. You're already there. Focus on your statements. Overcome the death statement. Look for new opportunities to serve people. It's important when people come that they get fired about doing ministry. Let them do it. Guide them. Don't do it for them. Guide them. Lead them. And don't dwell on what you don't have. Don't dwell on the past and work to get back to it. Celebrate the past. Recognize the present and get excited about the possibilities of the future because you do have something. Time to start fresh. In our own church, my own church, we let ministries die. We had some go dormant. But we worship a God of resurrection. Don't be afraid to let the thing die or go away because God can make things new. I want to encourage you all to spend time together. Easy time, relaxing time, communal time, talking, dreaming, laughing, praying, sharing a meal. Listen to one another and just share. Invite people from the community to join you. May you be service to each other, to your community, and to the people who desperately hear the good news. Amen. You all can now stand. We are going to sing the communion hymn, number 490. Sister, let me be your servant. from Tommy in the morning that sometimes I go, what long are my sermons? I really try for under the 20, but I didn't give you a 35, 36-minute sermon like I've done before in my church, so I wouldn't do that to you. But I do believe deeply in what I preached on today, and I know for a lot of churches coming out of the pandemic, as we start to hopefully come through this, things are changing. We have struggles in our church too that we have to address. I got struggles in my youth ministry in Boltsville that I have to address. The pandemic put us behind on, and I want to see churches thrive. I think there is a desperate need for churches such as yourself in this world. The message that you have, that communal love, that radical love that you show, people need it. I'm passionate about sharing that with people and having a church that does it. I do believe in a God of resurrection. This cross and this table reminds me of that. So it's my hope and prayer for you all that you experience that here and in your own lives. Let us pray.
For your acts of servitude, Christ our Lord, we give you thanks. You taught us wisdom, you showed us who to be through your actions, and you gave your life that we may have life. Feed us at this table, Lord, just as you washed Peter's feet. Give us the strength of your love as we come to your table.
On that night that Jesus sat with his disciples, he took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and said, "This is my body broken for you." He took the cup, and he poured out the wine, and he said, "This is my blood shed for you for the remission of sins. For as long as you eat of this bread and drink of this cup, you do this in remembrance of me." That was awesome, Jason. That was really awesome. Join me in prayer. God, I thank you for this opportunity to worship and preach here at this amazing congregation, this amazing place. God, I ask for blessings on this church and the people here. God, I ask for your Spirit to be present with them in the work that they do. I ask that you move in their hearts and in their ways as servants of your love, and to show that to the community around them. Lord, they've done so much and continue to do so much. Lift them up in energy. Speak to them in new ways. See the areas in this community that need your resurrection. God, I pray for them. I pray for Tanya. I pray for anyone in the Columbus area, that they come to know this wonderful group that is a great example of your radical love for all people. Let us now pray the prayer that your Son Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
It's harder to allow someone to serve you than it is to serve. To receive gifts of grace, we have to learn the lesson that Peter had to learn. In order to be the kind of servant Jesus was, you have to allow people to serve you. I don't know if you've ever been to a foot washing service. Kids did, but it's really hard to let someone wash your feet. Feet are kind of disgusting anyway, but letting someone not only see your feet, but hold them and wash them requires a willingness to be vulnerable. Jesus wants that vulnerability from us. To receive gifts of grace, we must be open to them. So as you give your gifts to others, remember to allow others to give to you. If you have prayer concerns today, write them on the card. Or if you have an offering that you want to give, there's a box at the bottom of the stairs that has a slot in it that you can put them in. You can also give your offering through regular mail or through online through Givelify. Let us stand and sing number 463, Renew Your Church.
Thank
allow me to share a word with you all. I really enjoyed it, and the word's out in the future. I'd love to come back and worship with you all again. So as you go from here today, go and be servants. Go and share the love of Christ with all people. Amen.
I come up here on Sunday and I go, it doesn't work.
It's funny.
It's like, it's not working.
I'd be worried if it went out.
It's like, it's not doing anything. Well, I'll take that. I guess Marty's going to get the other thing.
Okay.
Steve's going to get the cross, so.
All right.
Looks pretty. I'll get those.
I'll get
You
this.
don't. No, you don't need. Put that back. Shame on you. Don't fall.